You're listening to Witch Wednesdays, your weekly podcast source for all things witchcraft in the modern world. Join your hosts, Steph and Tara, every Wednesday morning as they dive into a new witchy topic.
Welcome back to Witch Wednesdays. This is Steph.
And this is Tara.
And you are listening to episode 33, Black and White Magic, and all about cursing, hexing, and jinxing.
Not all about, but
a little bit about. So we wanted to throw this episode in here, and we have another one coming up, a similar topic in about 10 episodes, but I think it's an important distinction to talk about, and Tara and I have, her being a Wiccan, we have different beliefs on this, and it's something that does come up a lot. Usually, sort of this dark magic and defensive magic is taught first, but we didn't want to start out that way.
No,
we starting out that way. So we are going to talk about it now, just so you kind of know where we stand and, you know, our differences and things like that. So let's talk first about the difference between black and white energy versus black and white magic or witchcraft.
Yes.
So you hear that a lot, that especially from beginners, that they're looking for a spell or ritual that, say, oh, I want a good luck spell, but only using white energy. Well, energy is neutral. So until you add intention to it, it's nothing. It's what you do with it that changes the outcome. So first of all, we want to say that there really is no such thing as black or white energy. That doesn't exist. So what people really are talking about is black versus white witchcraft. And in the realm of witchcraft, white magic is purely for positive means, and black magic is purely for negative.
Yes.
So when people talk about so-called black black, which I'll get into it in a minute, what they're really talking about is baneful magic. That's what it's really called. It's not really called black and white magic. That's not really a thing. We'll get into why I think that. What it's really called is baneful magic. So when people are talking about baneful magic, they are talking about, there are 4 kinds: cursing, hexing, jinxing, and crossing. These are all slightly different, but generally mean that they undertake a negative working against another person or situation. They may disrupt a person's life or disrupt a situation. And these are what are sometimes called this black magic. But really, when we talk about them, we call them baneful magic. Yeah. So a jinx is benign dark magic. It's used to inconvenience or discomfort a person. A hex is used to wish bad luck or ill intentions on a person. A curse is designed to cause direct harm to the person. And crossing is usually found in Hoodoo tradition. It's direct foot magic. So it's foot track magic is doing something to the ground directly where a person is going to walk over.
Yes.
So that's what crossing, or in a cross condition is by you putting something outside somebody's front door because they're going to cross over that. So that is
it's
hoodoo.
Similar to why people don't like to cross the path of a black cat.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. It's very similar.
Exactly right. Mm-hmm. So now that you kind of know what those things are, and we have another episode coming up on sort of defensive magic and protecting against those things, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But for this episode, we kind of really wanted to talk about the morality of cursing and hexing.
Yes.
Because there are many different views about this, and some witches, call themselves a white witch. They only do good spells, these positive spells and rituals. And Wiccans have beliefs about not putting, negative energy into the world, which Tara will get into.
Yes. The threefold law is also a big thing.
So we definitely have different views on this. So I don't know, Tara, do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Well, mine might be a little shorter. So I can start and then you can go into yours.
Sounds good.
So being Wiccan, the Wiccan creed and the rule of 3 are things that I deeply believe in and live my life by. So the Wiccan creed is, and it harm none, do what you will. And that's very, very simple. As long as you're not hurting anyone or anything, do whatever you want. I firmly believe this. I live my life by this. It's very, very important to me. I do not hex people, curse people, or jinx people because that's harming them. When I first got started, I remember a lot of people being like, well, you can curse them because it's not actually harming them. You're just directing negative energy their way, so they'll go away. That's not part of my personal belief system. That's just not, and it harm you none, do what you will. I think more people could stand to live by this rule. Also, there's the rule of 3. It can also be called the threefold law. It's held by a lot of Wiccans and pagans. It's not as universal as the Wiccan creed that I just stated, but it's basically whatever energy you put out into the world, it's going to come back to you times 3. So if you're putting negative energy out there, it's going to come back to you. So I try and put a lot of positive energy out there. Having said that, putting out some negative energy, it happens. We're human. It's going to happen. I just don't want to harm anyone. So if it's negative energy I'm putting out there, it's usually with a specific purpose and not intended to harm, because I know it's going to come back to me times 3. So with those 2 tenets, I do not jinx, hex, or curse. I know Wiccans that do, but that's just not my personal belief system. I don't know any Wiccans that are currently practicing that will curse. Jinx is a lot more common, and the people that I know that are Wiccan that have done it, they want to inconvenience a person for the greater good in their mind. I know when I was younger that there was a jinx placed on someone, and we talked about it, and I understand the reasoning. My friend that put the jinx wanted this gentleman to get very ill, because he was harming her, and we're not going to go into all that. But in that circumstance, I understood why she put the jinx on him, because she wanted to cause discomfort and a few other things. And then she did end up cursing him, and then her life went very bad for quite a few years. But like I said, I can see why negative energy, sometimes you do want to put it out there, but I'm always mindful of anything I put out, it's going to come back to me times 3. So I try and stay really positive, and I don't want to hurt anyone. So I really live by these 2 tenets. I try to live my daily life by this. It's both religious and moral compass and all of these things, but I'm not a big fan of jinxing, hexing, cursing. I don't even like pulling pranks on people because I think they're mean. So like, I know that my view is very different than many people's view, particularly Steph's, but these 2 tenets are what I base all of both my life on and my magic on. So I have used negative energy, and sometimes it's needed for a particular purpose, but I'm always mindful of not harming anyone with my magic, and that whatever I'm putting out, it's going to come back to me. So I try and be very mindful of the amount of negative energy I use, but I do believe that sometimes you need a little bit of negative energy. Life's about balance. You need some negative to pop up with the positive. So that's kind of my belief. That was very convoluted, but also it made me sound like a really nice person. I promise I'm not that nice.
And as in all things, I'm totally the opposite of Tara.
Yep.
But don't let her fool you. She is a lot nicer than I am. So she is a nice person. So here's where I stand. I do jinx and hex people. So throw that out. They'll start there. It's what Tara was saying is very common Wiccan beliefs.
Yes, it's Wiccan. It's definitely more religious than.
Yes, it's definitely Wiccan. The religious aspect, because the Wiccan Rite is one of the most important parts of being a Wiccan. Mm-hmm. So as you know, it's something that they follow and hold close to their hearts. So very few Wiccans will do any sort of, a negative, like baneful magic.
Yeah. Most people that do stop practicing soon after, because they're not compatible beliefs.
Right. Yes. Because their first rule is, do what you want as long as you're not harming anyone else. And this baneful magic is directly harming somebody else. So if you talk to anybody who's Wiccan, or you're just in general talking about witchcraft, and you're, saying that I think I want to jinx somebody, and somebody is, talking you out of it, and they're saying that's against the rules of witchcraft. It's not against the rules of witchcraft. It's against the rules of Wiccan. So they are likely a Wiccan.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and a lot of times for older people, those terms are interchangeable. So if you know someone that's 35, 45, 55, that's right around the time that 35-year-olds are right around the time when witch and Wicca stopped being interchangeable. Just to keep that in mind. It's also an age thing.
Yeah, that is very true.
So
here I have a lot of thoughts on
all the thoughts and feelings.
I have lots of thoughts and feelings. So my main thought is you always need to think of what the outcome is going to be and decide for yourself if it fits into your moral code. That is how I live my life, and that's how I direct everybody else to live their lives. You are the one that has to live with it at the end of the day, so it needs to fit in with your moral code, nobody else's, no matter what anybody else tells you. So
I agree.
First of all is this idea of black versus white and positive versus negative. I don't believe that it exists, because these terms are so tied to your personal definitions. So when people think about it, where do love spells or good luck spells fall? So love spells, a lot of people consider baneful magic. They think that you are taking away somebody else's free will. Yep. So they do see love spells as dark magic. But a lot of people think that good luck spells are purely positive. And I disagree. If you think about it, you're like, oh, you know what? I really want this job. I could really use the money, and the interview went great. So I'm going to go ahead and do this good luck spell to increase my chances of getting the job. And then you end up landing the job. In your view, that is completely positive working. It's all, good intentions and good things happen for you. But think about it from the point of view of the other people affected by that working. You were likely not the only person going out for that job. So what if somebody also interviewed and was also as equally qualified, maybe even needed the job more than you, had a family to support, had been out of work longer, but because you did that magical working, you got that job ahead of them, even though they may have needed it more. Is it purely a positive working anymore? I don't think so. So that is where this whole gray area comes in, because it's very hard for a working to be truly 100% positive, because you have to think of all of the other people and situations involved in that working. So I don't think that a magical working is purely all good or all bad. Everything in life is a mixture of between the two. So if you focus on these two extremes, you're missing everything in the middle. So that is why I don't believe in white versus black, and I don't think it exists. So I do not like to box myself in there. As far as jinxing, hexing, cursing, crossing, cursing is very difficult. It is, all of baneful magic takes a lot of energy out of you. It's very hard to do. So if you are going to go ahead and jinx, hex, curse, cross somebody, they have to have done something really wrong. I don't come home and put a jinx on the person who flipped me off in traffic or like cut me off or something. That's just, it's not worth it.
No.
It takes so much energy. So they would have to have done something really wrong for you to undertake that working. So doing this sort of baneful magic is not as common as you would think. It's not for every little thing.
It shouldn't be.
Yeah, that inconveniences you. That's not how it works, because it is very difficult magic. It takes a lot out of you. And cursing in particular is very, very hard. So I have never cursed anybody because I haven't, not that I'm against it, but directly, causing harm to a person takes a lot out of you. So somebody would have to have really wronged me. And luckily I have not had anybody in my life that has wronged me that much.
Yeah.
As far as jinxing and hexing, they still do take a lot of energy, but not as much. And I have had people in my life that fully deserve that. If you are sending out, negative, like toxicity, I am more than happy to send that right back to you, which is what a lot of, jinxing and hexing is, this inconvenience or causing them like bad luck or ill intentions towards them, they put that out there first, and I'm just sending it directly back to them. So I have no moral issues doing that. But the one thing that you have to remember, we're going to talk about this more in the upcoming defensive magic episode, but you don't know what somebody else has up as protection.
Yes.
As hearth witches, Tara and I have a lot of protections up around our house. We are constantly doing that.
In our home.
We talk about cleansing and getting rid of the negative energy, but then we also protect the house, and we'll get into how to do that in future episodes. But we have protections around us. When you cast a circle, you're putting a protection up around you. A lot of people have ancestors that are protecting them that they may not even be aware of. So I don't believe in the Wiccan thought that whatever you send out comes back to you in 3. That's not part of my belief system, but it is possible that it can come back to you, because if you send out a working, positive or negative, and they have protections up, or they have ancestors protecting them, or spirit guides protecting them, they will directly bounce that energy right back to you.
Yes.
And it will not touch that person at all. Good or bad, because if you're just sending energy to a person, spirits and ancestors might not always know that you mean something good. They're just going to bounce it back anyway. So, to protect that person. So fellow witches are more likely to have these protections up. But even people who are completely unaware of witchcraft or the magical world might still have ancestors protecting them that they don't even know about. So you have to know that if you're going to send out a jinx or hex, you have to know that the outcome is that it could be directly bounced back to you.
Yeah. And you have to be willing to accept that consequence.
Yes. And I think that goes for anything negative that you do in your life. It doesn't have to be magic related, but any sort of negative thing that you do in your life, you have to know that it can come back, and you have to be okay with the consequences of that bouncing back on you. So in order to undertake a jinx or hex, that is something that I think about. I'm like, well, you know what, if they have some sort of protection up, like, how am I going to deal with it if this bounces directly back on me, and this exact thing that I want to happen to somebody else happens to me? Like, how am I going to deal with that? Like, so that's something that you have to think about, which I haven't had anything bounce back on me, so that's good. But yes, I have undertaken baneful magic, but not very often, because it's a lot more work than positive workings. It's a lot more work in general to undertake workings for somebody else than it is to do them for yourself.
Yes.
Positive or
it's
negative.
Way harder. Yeah.
Yes, it's much harder to do workings for someone else. So it's not everything in life that upsets me or inconveniences me is enough to make me undertake magic for it. Like, sometimes you just have to put on your big girl pants and just deal with it, in a completely mundane way.
Agree with
that. So these small things that, inconvenience you, that are like not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things, you just kind of have to let them go or deal with them in mundane ways. And there are a lot of times that, people have bothered me to the point where I would put a jinx on them, but I still do deal with it in a mundane way by just like telling them off and cutting them out of my life. Like, don't always need magic to make my point clear.
Well, and that's one good thing about magic in general is magic is completely helpful. Obviously, I really like it, but there are more mundane ways to deal with a lot of life's problems. Like, magic definitely helps, but like you said, positive or negative, whatever you're going to put out there is going to come back to you or could come back to you. So always be aware.
Yeah, I think it's definitely important to think through your actions. You don't want to undertake any sort of baneful working while you're in the heat of the moment.
Yeah. Oh no, that's a terrible idea.
Yeah, something happens and you like come home all upset and you do something that night. Like, that's not a good idea. You need to think on it. You need to sleep on it. And, in a couple of days, if you still want to do it and you still think that it's worth it, then it does not go against my moral code. If you are a Wiccan, it probably will go against your moral code.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's hard to be Wiccan and curse people. I'm just going to throw that out there. Like, I know Wiccans that have cursed people and they don't stay Wiccan very long.
Yeah, it's very hard to go against that sort of code that
Literally
they
the
have
foundation.
yes, they have these rules written down that dictate the religion. So
yeah,
it's hard to go against that. But if you are just a secular witch like I am, your magic in general needs to fit within your own moral code. That's how I see things. That's how I believe it. And I just in general don't think that any working is purely good or purely bad. I don't think
and
that
I would agree with that. I don't believe in good and bad as traditionally defined, and it's for the same reason. It varies by person. Also, what's good for the bird is terrible for the worm. Like, it's all a matter of perspective.
Exactly. So that's why I think Tara and I can both agree, even though we undertake it differently in our practice, we can both agree that these terms of black and white don't exist.
We don't. Yeah, they're completely arbitrary. I could say that my magic's purple. How are you going to argue that? Like, I could say my magic is 7. It doesn't mean anything without a common definition. And black and white magic, black and white energy, we've talked about how we view our energy, and it's not like a specific color. It's a feeling. It's
exactly.
So many, it's more encompassing than just a flat color on a page.
Yes, exactly. And a lot of beginners want to only do things for good and only use white magic. And I understand that. And I think that's great. That's like the best place to start. But you should be aware that these terms really don't mean anything. Black and white really does not exist. I don't think anything in this world is black and white. It's always gray.
Yes.
So don't get caught up in this idea that, there's only good things. You only want to use white magic and there's only white energy. It's just not accurate.
Well, and we mentioned before, if you're getting into witchcraft to hex someone, and that's the reason you're getting into witchcraft, maybe you want to think of a better solution. Like,
yes,
if you're only getting into it to hurt someone else, I have some excellent therapy suggestions for you. But like,
yeah, that's not the way that we should handle things.
It's not, but at the same time, if you're only getting into magic to bless the flowers in your life and to thank the hummingbirds, and that's, again, too narrow a path. I personally think that, again, shades of gray. Everyone has to find their own path in all of this, but it's hard if you're only doing witchcraft as a lifestyle. Let's be honest. Like, it's more encompassing than a narrow path. So if you have one goal, maybe witchcraft isn't the way to achieve that one goal if that's the end all be all of you doing this huge lifestyle change. I highly recommend witchcraft to everyone. I think it helps in all lifestyles and fulfilling your purpose and finding your purpose. But if you just are into witchcraft for one specific goal, it might not be the correct path to go on. Whether that's hexing or blessing or anything, it's more encompassing than that. It's more varied than that.
Exactly.
Having said that, I do live the Wiccan lifestyle, so it's like,
and I do not.
Yes.
So we just wanted to sort of share that with you. We know that that's out there, as a topic of discussion, and things can get heated around it. But you have to decide what it means for you and how you feel about it. We are obviously different, but we get along perfectly well.
Yes.
So
look how we're not angry at each other.
Yeah. So it's not a huge thing in the grand scheme of things. We do have some book recommendations. Of course, we always have book recommendations.
All the books.
Yes.
Read. It's fun.
If you are not Wiccan and you are interested in kind of learning more about crossing, hexing, jinxing, then the books that we would recommend are Utterly Wicked by Dorothy Morrison, Backwoods Witchcraft by Jake Richards, which is very Appalachian based. So Appalachian based witchcraft is very similar to hoodoo, and it has a lot of Christian beliefs in there.
intermixed.
So a lot of, biblical references in this book, but still super interesting. And last one is Cursing and Crossing by Miss Ada. And we will have a corresponding blog post where we link all of those so you can find them if you're interested in just learning more about the topic.
And even if you are not interested in cursing and hexing and jinxing people, it's interesting as a topic to learn about. Also, as Steph was mentioning earlier, you don't know what protections other people might have in place, but it also helps to strengthen your own protections. Like, if you have ill intent, I think it would be very difficult to come into my place. Like, that's just the protections I have in place. If you have a curse on you, I think it would also be difficult to come into my sanctuary because there's so many protections in place, and you can't put really effective protections in place until you know what other people are capable of.
Exactly. So that is, I think about 10 episodes from now, we have defensive magic coming up.
Yes, because it is an important pillar as well.
Yes. So we do want to, talk about that. We don't start with defensive magic. A lot of, traditional learning paths start with defensive magic. We do not, obviously.
No, because
not getting into it until the end of the year here. We'll explain why in that episode, but we will have more information there just about how to protect yourself, why you should, and how to kind of recognize the signs of whether or not you've been jinxed or hexed. We'll go into all of that then. So that is all we have for you on this week's episode of Black and White Magic. If you have any thoughts on the topic, please let us know in the corresponding blog post, witchwednesdays.com, or let us know on Instagram, which is Witch Wednesdays Podcast.
And we want to hear your thoughts, but please don't fight with us or each other. These are our personal beliefs. They don't have to be yours, but we can respect your beliefs if you respect ours. So I know a lot of people get very heated on this topic. So just take a deep breath, think before you post, these kind of things.
Yes, they do, because it's like any other religion. There are people who will dogmatically defend Christianity. And
yes, that's very true.
There are people who live by the spirit of Jesus and don't condemn people like that. But there are people who definitely, defend Christianity to the death. And you will find similar people in the Wiccan religion that will be like Tara and just accepting of everybody. And you live by your own moral code and I'll do mine. And there are people in the Wiccan religion who will defend it to the death, and they think less of you, and they will tell you that if you do undertake any sort of baneful workings. So it runs the gamut.
I also eat meat, and I've had other Wiccans yell at me because that's harming animals. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I like meat. I'm going to eat it.
And I do not eat meat, but I would never tell Tara that she's not allowed to. So
exactly. We can still order a pizza together.
Yeah, half and half, man.
Uh-huh. Keep the world going.
Yes. So if you'd like to have a discussion with us or, anyone else in the community, please do so respectfully, because otherwise we will just delete it.
Yes. I just wanted to throw that out there. We've had overwhelmingly positive comments, and I really thank everyone for that. Like, I am overwhelmed by the positivity, and
yes, we have not
all that's happened here. No, it's been amazing. I just want to, because I know people get hot under the collar about this one.
Very true. Yeah.
I wanted to cut off that at the pass.
Good call, Tara. That is all we have for you this week. We will see you next week.
Bye. Follow us on Insta.
Thanks for listening to Witch Wednesdays with Steph and Tara. Love our content? Consider donating at anchor.fm/witch-wednesdays to help keep our podcast up and running. Please leave us a voicemail on that same site if you have any questions or comments, and follow us on Instagram at Witch Wednesdays Podcast.